Welcome to Habeas Treasures, where I try to decipher this book, There's Treasure Inside by John Collins Black, in order to find one of the 5 hidden treasures. On today's episode, I'll continue my breakdown of the Pokemon Box chapter, and specifically, why I think Larry Bird might be the mysterious Greninja that helps the author hide the treasure. Let's begin. If the author hid the box near French Lick in West Baden, I think it's reasonable to assume he included at least one clue about Larry Bird. Larry Bird was actually born in West Baden and grew up in French Lick. That's how he got the nickname, the Hick, from French Lick. He was an all-state basketball player in the 1970s and originally signed to play college basketball at the University of Indiana. However, he dropped out after only a month because he got homesick and returned to French Lick. At that point, he didn't know what to do, so his family convinced him to enroll at Northwood University's satellite campus located inside the old West Baden Springs Hotel. He even signed on to the basketball team there for the preseason, but dropped out before the regular season started in order to preserve his 4 years of college eligibility. He then took a job as a local garbage man for a year before enrolling at Indiana State, where he would then become the College Basketball Player of the Year in 1979. All right, so how do I think the author included Larry Bird in the treasure hunt? Well, believe it or not, I think he did it in a couple of ways. First, let's look at the following passage. In what became a stroke of fortune, the Greninja informed me he knew every corner of the area. We reversed course. As I followed, each step began to remind me of being 5 years old again. The forest opened up, an eagle greeted us from high above, minnows decorated the water's edge. I even got to witness a few magic carp conversing with the sea king. Nature was alive all around us. Okay, let's start with the first line. In what became a stroke of fortune, the Greninja informed me he knew every corner of the area. If we assume the line, in what became a stroke of fortune, is a clue, there are a couple of different directions it could take. First, the word stroke could relate to a golf stroke. After all, the design of the coin looks like it could be a reference to a golf flag. And there are a couple of world-class golf courses at French Lick and West Baden. Also, the Greninja could be a play on words, green ninja, as in someone who is so good at golf that they are like a ninja on the putting greens. I like this, but the one flaw as it relates to West Baden and French Lick is that I don't think the box is hidden on or very near a golf course there. I don't think the author wants a bunch of treasure hunters wandering around the golf courses for safety reasons. And from my research, I couldn't find any famous golfers from French Lick or West Baden. Instead, the phrase "in what became a stroke of fortune" could refer to Larry Bird honing his basketball shooting stroke at his home in French Lick before making millions of dollars in the NBA. Here's a picture of his childhood home, including the basketball goal he practiced on. And maybe the reason he knew every corner of the area is because there's literally a Larry Bird tribute seemingly everywhere in town. For instance, here's a street named after him, Larry Bird Boulevard. Here's the high school he went to. And here's a giant Larry Bird statue outside the community center. And here's a restaurant called Brick 33 that's named after his Celtics jersey number. He is literally all over town. There's even an entire section of the local museum dedicated to his life. Now, one interesting story I found out when researching Larry Bird is that he and Magic Johnson of the Lakers famously didn't get along when they were rivals in college or early in their professional careers. However, they both were signed to Converse shoe contracts, and Converse wanted to do an ad with the two of them together, highlighting the rivalry. At the time of the ad, Larry Bird was spending the off-season living in French Lick, so Converse flew Magic Johnson out to Indiana to film the commercial near Larry's home.
I heard Converse made a pair of Bird shoes for last year's MVP.
Yep.
When they made a pair of Magic shoes for this year's MVP.
Okay, Magic, show me what you got.
The Bird Shoe, the Magic Shoe. Choose your weapon from Converse.
During the downtime on set, Larry and Magic started talking to one another and actually became good friends. And despite their on-court rivalry, that friendship has lasted to this day. I think the author might be referencing the shoe commercial that was shot in French Lick in the line, "I even got to witness a few magic carp conversing with a sea king." The magic carp being Magic Johnson, conversing the Converse shoe ad, and the sea king being Larry Bird, the king of the Celtics, or the king of the seas, as they are sometimes known. And of course, the reason Larry Bird might be called a Greninja is because the color of the Celtics uniform is green, and he's a ninja with the basketball.
Behind the back to Nate Archibald, back to the
Okay, what else? Well, if you're a chapter purist who believes that there are no connections between part 1 and part 2 of the treasure book, ignore this next part of the video. Now, in the Michael Jordan chapter in part 1 of the book, the author recounts a story about how when he was growing up, he used to pretend to be one of 3 basketball players: Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, and Michael Jordan. Could be a coincidence, or maybe it's a subtle nod that Larry and Magic are important. Also, in the same chapter, he makes a reference to the Like Mike ads that Gatorade did with Michael Jordan. Turns out, Larry Bird was featured in one of those ads.
I'm not going to sing.
And who can forget the other famous basketball-related ad from the same time period featuring Larry Bird and Michael Jordan playing a game of horse for some McDonald's.
This is for your Big Mac, right? First one that misses,
Watches the winner eat lunch. Got it.
off the glass.
It's possible that one reason the author brings up famous ads from the 1980s and 90s in the Michael Jordan chapter is to make a connection to Larry Bird. And how about the children's book, Our Unbreakable Thread? Take a look at these 2 pages from the book. Notice there is what appears to be a Celtics basketball player featured on the poster. And how about the white bird shown on the Woodstock music poster? Or the caption on the page that reads, "Then one day when you were away and thinking about home." If you put these concepts together, Celtics, white bird, thinking of home, you could come up with the home of the white bird on the Celtics, aka Larry Bird's home, aka French Lick, Indiana. Anyway, I might be wrong about this entire solve, but I absolutely love the possibility that the line "Magic Carp conversing with a sea king" is a reference to this famous basketball shoe ad. It's my favorite clue of the entire hunt so far, and it could demonstrate why the author said you don't need to be a Pokemon expert to figure out the clues. In fact, in my next video, I'll explain why I think the Mudkip and the Swampert Pokemon that are referenced in the chapter might be connected to when the Jesuits ran the West Baden Springs property as a seminary.